Welcome to Hemmings Road to Improvement, our new road trip series where we take an old school vehicle and, with the help of some of the biggest names in the SEMA universe, update it over a 3,500-mile cross-country journey to benefit the children that SEMA Care seeks to help on a daily basis.
Welcome to Hemmings Road to Improvement Extra. I'm Mike Austin, and if you haven't seen Road to Improvement Extra episode 1, this is episode 2 where we go behind the scenes and talk about everything that happened in our Road to Improvement show, where we're taking a Chevy Surburban and driving it across the country, upgrading it along the way. I'm joined as usual by Mike Musto, and today we have a special guest, our co-host on the Suburban road trip, Elena Scherr. Hello, everybody.
What's up, man?
All right, so I guess let's jump right into it. If you're watching this and you haven't seen Road to Improvement episode 2, please watch that first. It's a lot cooler and far more interesting than looking at me, even if I have a Bennington shirt, which is an homage to our Hemmings headquarters in Bennington. So anyway, we left you leaving Lansing, driving through the night, 600 miles, because Mike doesn't know how maps work. And then it was your first time. Let's start with Elana. It was your first time driving the Suburban. You know, there's a really great scene where you've got two hands on the shifter. Like, what was it like?
There was a little bit of a learning curve for me on it, mostly size related. Not that the truck was too big. Those things are so easy to drive. People are always like, how do you drive such a big old truck? And it's like, no, it's fine because it's square. You can see every edge. Like, I would rather parallel park that truck than like a modern Challenger or a Camaro. But I just didn't fit very well in it. Like, you know, the seat sort of went up far enough to put the clutch in, and the shifter was sort of soupy, and it required a fair amount of movement. So it was sort of like, to get the leverage to shift, I had to kind of move my entire body over to be like, all right, we're shifting now. And then, you know, because the steering was so light, you know, it's like I'm shifting, I'm pulling on the wheel, and I go, oh, whoa, better do a correction now. It got to the point where I would just sort of like avoid shifting up or down if I didn't absolutely have to. Like, I'd just be like, we'll just coast to a stop in top gear. I think we can make it up this ramp without downshifting.
Yeah.
So then the other thing is, between the two of you, there's like a full foot of difference, and you got that bench seat. So Mike, how did your knees hit the dash when Elana was driving?
No, the first time we moved the seat up, it was a little cramped, but you just kind of get used to it. But the problem was, every time Elana would drive, like, it was like an extension, like tippy toe clutching, you know what I mean? And I just, like, we didn't have to use a seat cushion or blocks, but you could tell that she was kind of like, okay. And then, you know, shifting and everything else. So, but it wasn't too bad for me. It really wasn't.
It was more,
right, so
it was more when we would swap, Mike. Like,
yeah.
I don't think Mike was uncomfortable when he was in the passenger seat, but if I forgot to move the seat back, he would go to get in and just like smash his knee into the steering wheel and like just give me a look like, come on.
So,
yeah, but it was fun.
This episode, you're addressing some of those things with a transmission. You're putting a 5-speed in it from the stock 4-speed, which was really a 3-speed because first gear is a crawler. Why was there, when you were planning this trip, was that like, okay, we're gonna want to do this first, so we're gonna plan the stops around that, or it just kind of happened that way? Why was this the first stop?
Yeah, I mean, the way that I wanted to do it was performance in succession. Right. So if, like, what would we need to be able to cruise at modern highway speeds? And I mean, the first night that we had the truck, we drove that 600-mile leg, and we didn't have any gauges, and we didn't know what we were spinning the motor at. And I think it got to the point, I think it was like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, where everybody was just completely gassed, and I didn't even care. I was just like, you know what? If we blow it up, we blow it up. And we were just running as kind of hard as we could just to get to the hotel. But we knew that we were really kind of pushing the truck. So by putting the transmission in first, that really kind of alleviated that, oh my God, we could potentially blow this thing up because we're spinning it too fast. And that overdrive gear really just kind of set the stage for making the truck drivable throughout the rest of the road trip.
All right. So, and I noticed in the episode when you get there and you're taking the cover off the truck, there's a lot of bugs. I just went on a road trip in my van and I cleaned it before the road trip and I need to clean it again. Did you make any effort to keep the thing clean, or did you just let it pile up as like a really nice patina over the course of the trip?
Did we wash it? We washed it once.
We drove it through some puddles. Is that
yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it, right?
And it rained.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It did. So I think did we actually wash it?
You did.
So was there any point in the trip where you were like, this is kind of gross, or you were like, thank God it's raining? Or were you just like, it's an old truck, the paint's okay, and this looks cool because it's got some dirt on it?
I think so.
The second thing you said. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
We would wash the window. Like that was Mike was very good about doing that, because again, with the size thing, I would get out at a gas stop and I would go to wash the window and I would be like, okay, well, did the edges, Mike, can you do all the rest?
Oh, you gotta stand on the front wheel and then
I needed a step stool.
Yeah. No.
All right. Well, I thought you guys would have more stories about bug grossness or cleaning, but I guess it's just me staring, washing bugs off for the last twice in the last week. So let's go back to Silver Sport. You get to Silver Sport transmission. There's specialists in Tremec manuals.
Yep.
Elana muted the dogs. We're not going to talk about the dogs for a moment. One of the interesting things I saw was they get the transmissions in, presumably from the factory, and then they do some machining. Do you guys talk about why they do that, or what specifics they get into?
Yeah, well, I mean, when the original, I think it was the SM465 transmission that's in there, and they use that transmission on most light duty and half-ton trucks for GM, like Suburbans and light duty trucks and pickup trucks of the era. The transmission swap was pretty straightforward. I mean, one of the things that we needed to do was cut the exhaust so we could actually get the transmission out and the new transmission in. But the machining that we really had to do was for the new 4x4 transfer case. Just because we didn't have a shift lever for that, so they had to kind of create one. But I don't to my recollection, there wasn't that much machining. I mean, the transmission went right in. It was nice and smooth. They didn't really have to cut up too much. Am I remembering that right?
Well, I'm talking about in all of the stuff that comes through that shop. That they get a transmission and then they do work to it, so that you don't have to machine it when you buy one.
Yeah, that was impressive. That was impressive. Elana, you want to go into that a little bit, because I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about how like they get the transmissions, but then they have like specific car kits. So it's not like a universal. Like if you write in and you're like you want to get one for a muscle car, like they have different kits if you have a Challenger than if you have a Camaro, because they've already done the measurement to know this is where the hump is in the car. This is the angle that the shifter lever is going to have to come out of. This is the shifter lever you're going to need. And that's more what you're talking about, right, Mike? Like getting those.
Yeah, yeah. So if you're like, well, I'm going to order a Tremec, I could get it from anyone. And the reality is, no, it's not just they're stocking the stuff from the Tremec factory. They're stocking the stuff from the Tremec factory, and then they're doing, specific work that's going to make it better than, if you went to the Tremec section of Walmart or something.
Yeah, I mean that was one of the cool parts, is that Jeff Kaufman, he walked us through the entire kind of facility, and there is a real kind of assembly line, right? So if somebody orders something for, like Elana said, like a Challenger or a Camaro, that transmission is really kind of put together based on that car. So wherever the shifter lever should be and things of that nature, so that the owner, once they get it, doesn't have to do anything, and the shift lever will be in the right spot. They could still use their original console, and it's really kind of a one-stop shop for whomever wants to do the swap, because Silver Sport and Tremec have already done the research on it for the consumer, which is cool.
All right, so another piece from the episode. Can either of you tell me what runout is now that you've learned?
Go ahead, Lana.
Oh no, Mike, that's all you. That's all you.
So the short answer is no. Basically, it's go and watch the video, and we'll have the professionals tell you how to measure the run out.
I mean, I could tell you, but I don't want to show you.
I didn't
Right.
look it up, so I could be also sounding like I don't know what I'm talking about here. And also, I do want to say thank you to both of you for not being afraid to ask the question. You know, there's so much in the automotive world where people are like, oh yeah, FW29, and it, you know, it's got a synthetic Guibo or something, and everyone's like, yeah, totally.
No idea. Like, because Lana and I had talked about it, and I was like, do you know what he's talking about? She's like, no, I don't know.
Anyway, basically they're just making sure that everything is centered, that, you know, when you bolt stuff on, nothing's going to rub, right?
That's correct.
It's because you're working with things that are spinning. So it's similar to like somebody working in a machine shop, like on a lathe or something. If you put something in a lathe cocked off to the side and then you start cutting on it, you are not going to cut the same amount off of it all the way around. Obviously, when you're putting a transmission together, you don't want any metal to be cut off on any part. So you want it all to be centered so that you don't have any high spots, basically, that are hitting.
Right.
Yeah. And he did walk us through, if people go see the episode, the bread hack, which I thought that's definitely one of my favorite things. Where they used a piece of bread to get the bushing. I forget the name of the bushing, but to get the bushing out. And that's just those little things that come with experience that the home mechanic just might not know. But then when you see these guys do it, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Well, and you think about it, I remember this from the road trip gallery that we posted this summer, and Elana had a picture of it where it was like, wait, no, surely you have to be kidding, but it is real, and you don't have to worry about getting crumbs or, you know, gluten messing up your transmission fluid. It seemed like kind of genius, really.
It was pretty brilliant, although I did have someone tell me, more than one person tell me, don't do it on a modern LS engine because they have it's not a blind hole, so you will actually just fill your crankcase with bread.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so the last part of the episode, you guys, the transmission is off. They've disassembled the car. They've done a bunch of measurements, but then you have to take care of the piece that I certainly didn't consider when I was thinking about a transmission swap, which is drive shafts and driveline. You want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, that was great. Knoxville Driveline, they took care of doing the transmission, and it was neat to really kind of go to their shop and have him kind of walk us through the process by which the drive shafts were made, right? And I think, you know, Adam is who's at Knoxville, he made a really great point. He's like, so many people just never consider the driveline because it's just not a sexy piece of the car, right? It's underneath or the truck. It really, I mean, that's what gets you rolling, right? You don't have a drive shaft, you've got big problems. And
well,
you know,
and if you asked me, if you were like, I'm going to replace the drive, even as an upgrade, I'm going to get a lighter drive shaft, or you know, this thing's broken, I'm going to do it. I would have assumed you just buy it, and whatever you order, you know, from the catalog or from the supplier comes balanced and you're good to go. And that's not the case.
No. You know, watching the guys put the transmission in, I mean, you know, the drive shaft length was different between the old SM465 and the TKO 4050 that they put in. So the measurement has to be pretty spot on, right? So, you know, Silver Sport, they take all the measurements. We went over to Knoxville. They knocked out the drive shaft components for it. And I mean, the beauty of it was once everything was installed, there was zero vibration in this truck at all from the driveline. And I think, you know, driveline vibration is something that a lot of people, they might know about it. You know, if they feel a vibration in the car, a lot of times they might think there's a wheel out of balance, or they might think there's something in the, you know, in the rear end, when so many times it just can be, you know, a problem with an unbalanced driveline. So, and it really is one of the most important things, which is why I think that was such a kind of a cool segment to watch.
So Elana, you've done, I presume that you've replaced drive shafts at some point in your project car history. Other than the bread hack, what did you learn from this episode that you're taking home for your next project?
I mean, I definitely went home with the desire to just swap like my entire fleet over to manuals. I mean, it's just like, it's so much more fun, and it's just like so cool, right? Like anytime you look in a car, in an old muscle car, and you're like, to stick. It's like that car just goes like so much higher. And the fact that you can get these sort of nice modern feeling shifters and transmissions for older cars, it's pretty tempting, I gotta say. I could.
So yeah, I almost forgot. Tell us about the parking lot at Silver Sport Transmission.
So I think that's what I was doing when Mike was learning about drive shafts, because I just couldn't believe how many cool cars were there. And some of them belonged to the owner at Silver Sport, and then other ones were just the company cars. And there was like a big variety. I mean, there was the sort of stuff that you would expect to see. I think there was a GTO or a Le Mans and a Corvette. But then there were some other interesting things as well. One of the kids there had a Miata, and it was so fun to talk to everybody who worked there about their cars. All of them sticks, obviously, and all of them just genuinely interested in cars, liked driving. I remember talking to one of the guys. We'd been working all day, a long day, and I was like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" He's like, "Oh, I'm going to a car show." I was like, "Yeah, of course you are."
All right, so this particular stop on the road to improvement is a two-part episode. Part one, we take it apart, we learn about the Driveshaft. Part two, they put it back in. But what are we going to see in the next episode? Is there anything you can hint at without giving it away, either of you?
Sure. Yeah, I think the next episode, like you said, is the reinstallation of everything. We did have an issue with the shift mechanism for the transfer case to put the car into four-wheel drive, put the truck into four-wheel drive, and they came up with a pretty cool solution to fix that. I think one of my favorite things is just watching anytime as somebody who's mildly mechanically inclined, which means I'm really not good at anything, watching these professionals do stuff and throw stuff on a lathe and just build something that never existed before is just really great to watch. And I'm always enamored when I see people that can do that, because it's just, I don't know, to me, it's just something that I find really, really cool. And you'll see a lot of that in the next episode, which is very cool to me.
Yeah, I always say it takes 3 times to learn something, whether it's on the car or anything else. Like the first time you're following the instructions, the second time you're paying attention to what you're doing, and the third time you know it. But if you're a professional like this, you've done it hundreds of times, and then you start, it just becomes like playing music or rote. You start learning the little tricks that you could never even really, some of the stuff you can't even tell someone about. So it's nice to know when you see someone doing that, hey, I'm not gonna have to worry about this at all. So
yeah, I think that was one of the best parts about being there, was like, if a problem arose, we were just like, okay, they'll fix it. And like, I don't think there was ever a time where either one of us were worried about anything, right?
No, I mean, we were worried about lunch a couple of times.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's leave with that then. What was the lunch highlight? This was like a 4-day stop, wasn't it? So you had a few different lunch votes.
So we started out the trip with like several food fails. Like we were really excited about a lot of food stuff, but we just like had very bad timing. And for a while, anytime we ordered stuff, something would get messed up in the order. So then like someone's food wouldn't be delivered and it'd be a mess. But I do remember that we had some good Cuban food that we did like takeout.
Yep.
And I remember sitting on this like picnic table outside of Silver Sport, like staring at that Corvette and eating a very good Cuban sandwich and being like, this is all right. Road tripping's okay.
Yeah, it was that. I think there were like maybe 4 good meals, like what I would consider good meals out of our month-long or almost month-long escapade on the road. And then we had we had a lot of subpar.
Yeah, it was, we were bad at it. It was our own faults. We made poor decisions. We had good donuts at Silver Sport too. The first of like, quite a lot of donuts that we had on the trip, which I am still trying to work off. Like the pants fit me when I left for that trip, like did not fit me. You'll all see it in the episodes. Like those pants don't fit anymore. I blame Mike. I'm going to charge you for my gym membership.
Yeah, I mean the road food was questionable at best, but I think we managed to get through it. But for the next time, a lot more planning around the whole food situation, because I don't think any of us could go through that again, just from a health
I mean,
perspective.
yeah, I'm probably revealing too much about myself, but that's like my first priority. It's like, okay, we're on the road. Where's lunch? So I'm glad to know you guys learned a few things. So Road to Improvement on the Hemmings YouTube channel right now, also on Hemmings.com. Episode 3 is coming next week if you're watching this, actually in a few days. And watch episode 2 right now. Again, ask us questions. Mike has answered a bunch of them in the YouTube comments. If any more come up that we see we want to ask you in person, we'll do that next time around too. Thanks for coming, Elana. Good as always, Mike. Thanks everyone for watching.
Bye, Mike. Thanks, Alana.